Hello.
Good evening, Anthony, and good evening, Graham.
Hi, Charles. I'd like to say something to you in my new expert language of Portuguese. And here it is. I'd like to welcome everybody to Dos Grandes Egos em Carro Pequeno, which is basically two large egos and a small car in Portuguese.
Excellent.
I'm sure
I'm,
listeners in Portugal will love it. They'll just love it.
I'm glad you clarified that one, that it was Lisbon in Portugal and not Lisbon in Ireland, where all you would have needed to do was an Irish accent in English.
Well, that's quite
now
tricky.
you describe
and dangerous.
Graham, you describe well, it is, but you describe Lisbon in Portugal as Europe's oldest and hottest city. Are you talking temperatures here or trendiness?
Well, not really. I mean, it is Europe, one of Western Europe's oldest cities, and it was very hot, certainly compared to Britain. But I don't think technically is Europe's hottest city in terms of the temperature. Although I was told when I was there last week that it was 40 only 2 weeks ago,
Huh?
which would have been quite unbearable. But it's more that it's quite a sort of like colourful, lively. It's got a hot pulse. It's not a slow city. It's not like tense either. It's very relaxed but very lively at the same time.
And part of that liveliness, Graham, you did a kind of temperature test on the arts world of Lisbon, and in particular the musical influences, and testing the temperature, if you like, of the music scene in Portugal and in particular in Lisbon. Portugal famous for fado singers.
Fado, yeah. Yeah, I can't say I didn't go there a huge fan of fado, but I did experience a bit of it in a unusual situation, which was good. We got the cheapest boat you could get because Lisbon's obviously in a river, and we got the cheapest boat you could get, and it was a open wooden boat from more than 100 years ago that used to be used to ferry goods across the river before they built, I think it's the April 24th bridge and April 25th actually, yeah. So we're on that boat open to the elements, really old fashioned because it was cheap. Because all the other fancy Dan boats were more expensive. And it was great because you had the wind in your hair, the water was splashing over the side. You were completely at one with the elements, and the guide was playing fado music on the boat, and it sounded very much like a Portuguese version of Elizabeth Fraser singing This Mortal Coil's Song to the Siren. And so when you were outdoors in that environment with the landscape, the blue skies and the open waters, it was quite emotional. I had to actually watch it and burst into tears. But when I heard it in a bar, I just thought, oh, what's this cheesy stuff? But it certainly worked on a boat.
Who's Portugal's most famous musician?
I do not know that whatsoever because Portugal has obviously I've been to a lot of European cities and various places in the world over the decades. And when you go to somewhere like Amsterdam or Reykjavik, you can tell there's a big British music influence, not only by the record shops and what records they've got on display, but what music is played in bars. So in Reykjavik and Amsterdam, there's quite a lot of British music played, sometimes classic 60s, 70s rock, but quite often more recent indie music. But Portugal wasn't one of those places. Lisbon isn't one of those places. The music that was played most of all in bars and coming out of cars, etc., was sort of Latin flavored jazz. Latin flavored jazz obviously is pretty big because, I mean, Lisbon's got great roots in Africa and Islamic culture, and so it's a much more earthy form of music and a bit less Western European. But I did discover that if you go to craft beer bars, of which there are quite a few now in Lisbon, they actually play more British and American sort of rock indie music. So if you go to Crafty Corner, which is a brilliant craft beer bar in Lisbon, you'll hear a lot of tracks by the Police and by the Kinks and the Beatles, and if you go to LX Factory, which is a reconverted industrial area, which is now full of craft beer bars and cafes and street food and restaurants. Well, if you go to the rooftop bar there, which is a great view overlooking the river and the city itself, they again play mainly British and American classic rock and indie. So there are some spots where Western rock music that we love so much comes into play. But the interesting about the LX Factory is that the jazz thing comes out again in the LX Factory because one of the units in the old industrial area has been converted, which is a real mecca for tourists. Is called Jazz Messengers, and it's been there since 1980s. A record shop, obviously specialising in jazz, and that's a phenomenally great record shop. If you want jazz on vinyl, and there's a little bit of rock there as well, it's absolutely fantastic. And it's the sort of place where Giles Peterson, the BBC Six Music jazz and world music DJ, has definitely been. You could just tell when you walked in that he's definitely been there. It's his sort of cool joint.
I've
Not
looked
entirely
up some,
my scene.
No, I've looked up some famous Portuguese singers. They've come up with 50, but I guess João Gilberto, 1931 to 2019.
Oh, yeah, I've heard of him.
Carmen Miranda, 1909
Really?
to 1955. Yes.
Mm.
Maritza, who played in Harrogate at one festival, I remember.
Yeah.
I went to see her at the Harrogate Festival. Nelly Furtado, she qualifies. And see if I can come up with anyone else that's familiar to us all. Well, that's 4 so far that are, I would say, are familiar names all round. Well, maybe Maritza isn't.
I think with this discussion,
it's not a great list. We could always include Sam the Kid. No idea who he is. He can go for the 5th. Exactly.
Yeah, but what this discussion reveals is our ignorance in Britain about Portugal in general.
Yes.
And Portuguese music specifically, because like a lot of things, the British know quite a lot about certain countries and not very much about whole swathes of the planet. So that's part of the reason we decided to go to Lisbon, because hadn't been there before, didn't know a lot about it, wanted to see what it was like. And it's certainly worth a trip.
I mean, it's often suggested that rather than going to Spain for a holiday, go to Portugal, because it is less discovered, it is less well known, and in many ways, therefore, it's still in some ways a journey of discovery that has yet to be discovered by an awful lot of people.
Well, the Great Wall's got huge amounts of tourists go there, though, from all around the world, not mainly Britain. And we chatted to a lot of people.
Germany as well, obviously. Yeah.
No, every nation in the world goes to Lisbon. It's got so many links to its own history to different parts of the world, specifically South America and Africa and Asia. A lot of Asian links.
Yes.
But the great thing about it is a completely natural city. It's lived in. It's covered in graffiti. It's colourful streets. It's cobblestones. It's the mix of Moorish influences and European influences, and it's not preserved in aspic. It's not like a Disneyfied version of a great European capital. It's still living and breathing, and it's a bit dishevelled, but it's still got It's got a huge number of Michelin star restaurants. It's got some great art galleries of modern art. It's got all the things that you'd want as a tourist, but it hasn't. And even though there's a lot of tourists around, and you're surrounded by tourists, it hasn't got that feel of like you've gone somewhere fake. It feels like Lisbon belongs to Lisbon, even though it's full of foreigners. It still feels.
So that is that's the perfect match, isn't it? I mean, that's always a debating point in York. How much is it a city for tourists, and how much is it a city for the locals, and how actually that balance of that equation arguably has been changing gradually towards tourism over the city itself, and one of the consequences of that has been a noticeable diminution in the quality of the shops in the city, but by comparison, restaurants, pubs, bars, concerts, theatre, all that side of it, which applies both to locals and in particular to draw in people from elsewhere, that side of the city goes from strength to strength. And that's an interesting thing, that balance between the two, how much you play to the home economy, how much you play to the away economy, how much by going for one are you in some ways making it to the detriment of what's traditional and wonderful about a city like York, which of course is a city steeped in its history, and for those who live there, you can't ignore that. York Minster stands in front of you if ever you need to work out where you are in the city. Look for York Minster. Advice given to tourists, of course, but it equally applies in a different way to the hold that it has on the city overall. But in Lisbon, did you feel, there's the challenge? Is it a city that you feel you could live in, or are you very much just want to be there as a tourist?
I really liked it. I felt really at home. It's quite even though it's got a buzz about it, it's also
Mm,
quite relaxing. It's all very natural, and the people were almost wholly friendly and outgoing. It seemed to have the buzz of like a major city in England or Scotland,
mm.
but very little attention, not any tension. So yeah, I could imagine living there, but it's so hot. As a pale-faced Scot, there's absolutely
Oh,
no
no,
way I could
no,
live there for years and end because it would physically kill me. I mean,
no,
I
absolutely.
got sunburn after a day.
Did you really?
Well,
I
yeah,
think
well,
it's
we walked 12 miles the first day because we
in
always like to do things on foot. But it turns out that Lisbon has got so many things you need to go and see. You really
yeah.
can't do the whole thing on foot. You have to use the trams and the buses, and to a lesser degree the metro. It's just not possible on foot. It's just the distances and the hills. It's built on 7 hills, so it's not
So
great
that
if you like
matches
to.
Rome and Sheffield.
Mm, yeah, well, I think well, I don't want to knock Sheffield. I like Sheffield, but I think Lisbon's got more character and history than Sheffield.
Last question, and this is not an intrusive one about how the 20th wedding anniversary went romantically, but is it a romantic city?
Yeah, it can be. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, there's lots of great sites, lots of great viewpoints, lots of great restaurants and cafes, and yeah, it works on that level. Yeah, for sure.
Because I think that's
I
important.
recommend when you first arrive, you think, "Good grief, this is a bit scruffy, graffiti
Yeah,
everywhere,
yeah,
bit dishevelled," but it gets under your skin after a couple of days, and you
yeah,
start to
yeah.
like get into the Lisbon groove, and then you actually like the fact it's a bit dishevelled and a bit natural, and it's full of like really colourful graffiti. It feels like
Mm.
a living, breathing place. It doesn't feel like going to some tourist destination, which
Painted
is
for
just there to
tourists.
please tourists. Exactly.
Disney
Yeah,
town, Disney,
it's
not a
not paint.
Disney,
No,
not a Disney town,
yeah,
basically.
it's
No, no,
definitely not painted for tourists.
no. So recommended, obviously. Anyone who hasn't been to Lisbon, and Graham's recommending it after a first visit there. So Graham, selfishly, I want to discuss a playwright that you always think that I'm in love with Alan Ayckbourn, but I'm not. I'm in love with his work.
I think you have shares in his plays. That's what I think.
But I'm going to, if you will excuse me, discuss Yorkshire's, and he is of course an adopted Yorkshireman, a Londoner, and educated at Haileybury, but he's lived in Scarborough for so many years, and so many of the plays have started in Scarborough. And then John Godber, son of a mining community, and has been a playwright who's up into his plays totaling more than 70. In Alan's case, more than now 89, heading for his 90th play. And their plays opened on the same night. Their latest plays opened on the same night.
Really?
John's, yes, it opened in Wakefield. In John's case, called "Do I Love You?" A play about Northern Soul, and Alan Ayckbourn's play "Constant Companions" is actually having a constant venue, and that is the Stephen Joseph Theatre at first until October the 7th, and then we'll be doing a short tour of 2 venues after that, neither of which are in Yorkshire from my memory. John's tour, loads of chances to see it even into next year across lots of different Yorkshire venues. So rather than giving all those venues out, just look on the website
Yeah,
for
don't do that,
the John
Charles.
Godber Company. No, exactly. I don't want to be hugely helpful in that way. So you have Britain's most performed living playwright and second most performed living playwright, both of whom based here in Yorkshire. And the thing that I enjoy, and though this is not a love-in for either of the writers, but the thing that I enjoy is having seen so many plays by both of them over the years, there is that kind of backstop position of appreciating the fact that they are still coming up with new work that's interesting. And State of the Nation has been a thing that both have written about in recent plays. John now in this piece, after a run of State of the Rotten Nation plays, Do I Love You is largely, in many ways, a celebration of something that's still there. We see a lot of things that have gone, and John makes the point, where have youth clubs gone? Where's Sunday football leagues gone? Where have working men's clubs gone? But by contrast, Northern Soul clubs are still thriving. And you can go to a Northern Soul club night at Cleethorpes for something like, I think, if my memory is right from the play, it's something like £3 for 8 hours of dancing. Now that represents value to any Yorkshireman. Absolutely, it does.
Yeah.
So
well, Harrogate has DJ nights in Harrogate and
yeah,
across Yorkshire, as you said already. But Harrogate has DJ night, which is Northern Soul, probably about once a month. And they recently finished Proms, the Albert Hall in London. There was even a Northern Soul night led by Stuart McConey. So Northern Soul just refuses to die.
So John's opinion on that was that they gentrified Northern Soul. He's a proper Northern Soul disciple from his own youth. He bought Northern Soul records, proper platters on vinyl, and it was his great love as a young man to go. He said he was a pretty good dancer in his time. He says he can't now because of his knees. So what this is, it's a kind of hymn of love to Northern Soul, but it's a combination of an older man, not in any way nostalgic about it, because what he does is he refracts it through 3 young people who have been, in the case of 2 of them, one chose not to go to college and instead was looking after a grandmother. One had studied psychology, and they've ended up, after COVID, working instead at what he would call, I think John, he didn't say that it was a familiar named brand of selling you fried chicken, but essentially he would call it a fried chicken portal, a drive-through. And the 3 of them work together there. So that's the monotony of life that they have. A Northern Soul, which they discover, rather like Celestine's daughter, Emma, suddenly discovered Otis Redding, as if Otis Redding was a brand new singer. But the point there was it was a new joy for Emma to discover, and it's very much like that for the 3 young Northerners who start going to Northern Soul clubs and enjoying the dancing.
Yep.
And one of them played by John's daughter.
The thing about Northern Soul, though, is that it is all old music. No one makes new Northern Soul.
No, they don't. And that's what's interesting, is they are keeping the faith and not changing the faith. So it's sticking with
a religious cult.
Well, now John would say, Graham, that's a really good point. It's not by coincidence called keeping the faith. It's not by coincidence I called John a disciple of Northern Soul, because it is an act of faith. And actually, this character played by Martha Godber, John's daughter, who did train in dancing when she was about 16 in Leeds, and went on to study then at LIPA. And so she says, I'm not going to do dancing. I'm not going to dance. I'm just going to watch until I absolutely get it. Not just the moves, but the feeling of it. And so that's a very much part of it with John. He looks at a world that's become too fake. And we know there's loads of fakery around. And I think that's the other thing he likes about it. It was a working class cult right from the start. Northern Soul Records, yes, they came into London, but Northerners went down, bought the records in London, took them back up to the industrial cities, played them in the places we all know, of course, of Wigan, Blackpool, we mentioned Cleethorpes, Hull, Scarborough, Leeds, you name it. They all had Northern Soul clubs. And for John, it's a thing that has maintained its authenticity. And I like the fact that he trumps that as being the really, really important thing. Where has authenticity gone? Where's working class traditional culture gone? And so much is fakery now. In what we have, even the Premier League is a fake world, if you like. It's not football as we knew it. There's an example, I think, another one of where faith in what you had in football has frankly gone the way it's presented. And he's looking at Northern Soul as being a really, really rare example of something that is still faithful.
The reason's no culture, because people can live their lives individually on their phones and at home. So there's no real reason why they have to get involved with joint things in general and communal things, because they've already got everything they need at their fingertips.
But they haven't, Graham. That's what's really interesting. It's at the fingertips. But it's not. Look, the connection. When we went to the gig the other night together, That wouldn't have worked just watching that gig on a phone. You need to be
No, I
there.
agree.
And it's the same.
Agree
And
entirely.
and dancing is a wholly that is something that you're taking part in it. You totally commit to it. You sweat through 8 hours of dancing, and you
Yeah,
enjoy watching others and sharing other people's enjoyment in the acts of dancing. I
yeah.
think a world where people just watch things rather than taking part and feeling that sense of community is not where we
I
want to
do.
go.
I agree,
Surely.
but when I go to a gig, I like to not know what's coming. But when you
Mm,
go to Northern Soul Night, just as in the days of raves in the 1990s,
yeah,
and I went to a couple, it's all
yeah.
very regimented. Everybody does the same thing over and over again, ad infinitum. And you can't really do your own thing in the sense that if you were too outlandish, it would cause a problem. If you turn up at Northern Soul Night dressed as a Red Indian or Native American Indian, if you want to use the correct name, and
Yes.
leap around doing a strange dance from an Adamant video from the early 1980s, I'm fairly sure the other Northern Soul fans would get a bit annoyed. So, although I'm not against Northern Soul, it's perfectly fine, and it's great that it's survived, and it's great that it engenders such passion. It's not totally for me because it's a bit like
Bit
it's a bit
messianic,
like a
bit
formula.
messianic, but I mean, too religious, too much of a cult.
Well, yeah, but when you and me go to gigs, even if it's a band that we love, if we
Mm,
don't like a particular song, we don't say that song's brilliant because it's a band we
no, that's
love.
true.
We go,
That's
that
true.
song's not so good. And
Mm.
Northern Soul's not like that, and neither is club music. You love the whole thing, and you react to the whole thing in the
Mm.
same way every single time. It's a guaranteed that the night out at Northern Soul or any of the dance clubs is you know what's coming, you know exactly what you're gonna get, and so I can't buy into that. But I'm not knocking anybody else who does buy into it. It's totally fine.
So, Do I Love You, which is the title of the play, you're not so sure. You're not committed to that level of love, Graham, clearly.
No, well, is it a question mark? Do I love you? Is there a question mark in the
The,
title?
well, indeed, but if you remember the song,
Yeah, I know
it's
that. Yeah, I know
brackets,
that's
indeed I
it's a really
do.
famous one. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, but the
So the,
brackets do not appear in the title of the play, do they? In Gondor's play.
no,
Well, there you
but
go.
I would
So
say
he has asked a
I would say
question.
that it is a hymn of love. I mean, the question marks
Yeah.
there to draw you into the question. He answers it in the
Mm.
affirmative. Absolutely.
Well,
He also does wrap in some state of the nation as well. Of course he does, because he looks at that 0 hours contract working environment, the monotony of drive-through work, and he's still someone who feels frustration at stunted opportunities for young people. But I thought within its celebration of Northern Soul, and I know what you mean. And if you're not a disciple of it, I can understand that. But I thought it worked very well within
but
that. Now that's a kind of looking back to
that
the
to me sounds like
past
that
play.
sounds like a Godber play. Yeah, but this sounds
Yes.
like a Godber
Well,
play, which has nothing in common with Ayckbourn whatsoever.
so I mean, John's plays invariably break down the fourth wall straight away. They actually tell you who they're going to play. They tell you how they're going to play it. They introduce themselves, and John always has that. It's kind of minimum of fuss over the staging, maximum reliance on characterization and on dialogue that fizzes, has sometimes a combative element to it, has a physical theatre element to it. And yes, if you like, there's a formulaic element to it, but the subject matters and the humor, the wit that he shows in his way, that I kind of call it a stubborn northern wit in many ways. It's a defiant wit. And he
I,
gets
I
characters. He gets male and female characters, as does, of course, Ayckbourn write brilliantly uh, the female characters he writes. Ayckbourn, that play looked at the past and refracted it through the present. In the case of the new play from Alan
Godber's not
Ayckbourn,
a slow burner. Godber's a bit punchy.
yes,
So how does that compare to Ayckbourn? Because I'm sure he's a bit more slow burning.
Alan's work, the humor always grows darker as a play goes on. That's been something that's come more and more into work. Also, actually, has come into John's work as well. But over the years with Alan, the humor, which I mean, you do sit there at times, just almost like a hyena in laughter at how funny Alan's pieces are. But there is a darkness there as well. What he's looking at in this play is the world of artificial intelligence, of automaton maids, of robotic sex toys, and it's set in a soon to come Time. And
Soon to
so it's
come
called
what?
Constant Companions. It's set in, say again, Graham.
Set in
It's
the
set
near
in,
future.
so, yeah, soon to come time. Now, the clever thing with Ayckbourn, of course, is yes, it is set in the future time, but actually, it's always reflecting on how we are now. So the human side of the story, our foibles, our failings, our familiar contrariness, all come through in the human characters who are desperate for love and to express desire. And that is the thing that is strongest in the play, for all the fact that underneath it all is an artificially intelligent world that is beginning to turn. And without wanting to ruin the play and give it away, it is that thing of, at what point might the robots take over? And Ayckbourn foresees a future where that we could be on the cusp at some point of that happening. And we won't be the first writers to suggest that, but it's done with a humor. But at the same time, he's looking at a bleak future for humanity, because our failings are likely to keep repeating and denuding us and denuding us and denuding us to the point of self-destruction, in which is possible. I mean, you've only got to look at the latest announcements on.
Yeah, I think that's too clear cut. I think it'd be more like the development of the digital world and mobile phones and laptops, in the sense that it's led to lots of bad things, but it's led to lots of things that people love. So I think with the development of AI, the great irony will be that it will do all the things that Ayckbourn's warning about, but I don't think people will mind. People will think the price of things going wrong involving it will be all right, because A, they can't do anything about it, and B, they also get something out of it. So if you think back to the second Blade Runner film, which came out a few years back with Ryan Gosling, he has sex with a hologram, and in the whole film, and he doesn't mind it, because I think he actually falls in love with the hologram. But in the entire film, the hologram woman that he's like almost his girlfriend is actually the most human character in the film. The humans themselves are all quite cold, but this hologram is actually quite emotional. So I think it's more like the AI. What people won't mind, people accept all this is just the way it's going to go.
Ayckbourn's AI characters are more cynical than that. They're deceptive. They pull the rug. It's
like what?
At the same time, I do think it's the. I don't want to give it away, because that's the key part of the play, really. Their journey as well. Their journey as well.
So is it a good play? Is it a good play? And if so,
Graham, I absolutely, it's a good play. It's funny, but it's thought-provoking. It has a sense of foreboding about it. Beautifully performed as ever. I mean, Alan picks his casts wonderfully, time after time. It's a joy to watch, but at the same time, you think, gosh, where is our future? I was going to make the point that here we have a world where suddenly it's been decided by the Tory government, in pursuit of votes, that somehow if you tell people they don't need to have electric cars by the 2030, that somehow is going to be a vote winner. Irresponsible. And that's the kind of thing, when I'm talking about humans' capacity for self-destruction, that ultimately is where we're leading ourselves. For all the development of AI, our ability to shoot ourselves in the foot and destroy ourselves, I think, is more rampant than ever right now. Not just in wars, but actually in how we deal with the bigger problem overall, which is, where the hell is this world going? And so a play like this, which is suggesting that our failings are going to ultimately cost us probably our future.
I just think it'll be a different future with loads of points that are worse than now, but some points that are better. And I don't see like AI leading to a landscape that is so bleak that everybody goes, wait a minute, how do we let this happen? I think it'll be just like the digital world's gone. People won't even realize the damage it's doing in general. I mean, some will, but not enough people to actually affect the course of history. And also, once Ayckbourn finally goes to the great theatre in the sky,
Mm.
and he is getting on, so I had to bring it up. Perhaps there'll be an AI program to produce new Ayckbourn plays.
Who would be remotely surprised at that? I think I mentioned to you that Howard Eller, the writer of the pantomime for the Roundtree Players, Cinderella, put to AI or the what's it called, Chat GPT or whatever. He put in the challenge: write a slapstick scene. It came
Mm.
back. It came back in 3 seconds with a slapstick scene that didn't understand how slapstick worked. So it understood that
Yeah.
it had to have a custard pie being thrown in the face, but it didn't know how
Oh
to
yeah, yeah.
use it to be
Mm,
funny.
mm, mm,
So
mm.
I think there's a long way to go. Now, Graham, I was intrigued because I read this article on Five Stars lead singer now living in Harrogate. At the same time, you've also interviewed not just her, but you've also interviewed, so the rumour goes, Graham Parker of the Rumour. So, first of all, lead singer of Five Star. How did you discover that she was living in Harrogate, and why is she living in Harrogate?
Well, the bizarre thing about working for so long for the Harrogate Advertiser is that all these interviews with well-known musicians are just offered to me, which is not
Yeah.
because I'm so hugely respected and so widely known throughout the whole industry, and they all come clamoring to be interviewed by me. It's just part of the circuit, and I very rarely ask for interviews. They're just given to me on a plate. So the same week at the Harrogate Advertiser, about 2 weeks ago, I had Graham Parker from the 1970s and 80s, although he's still going strong, and Denise Pearson, who was lead singer and a bit of a songwriter for Five Star in the 80s and 90s, offered to me. And so I just said yes. That's the golden
So,
rule. If offered something interesting, just
oh,
say
of
yes.
course. So, Graham, who of course you share your name with Graham Parker. We'll just briefly on Graham. Why was he being interviewed? Are the
Well,
Graham Parker and the Rumour
he's
playing in Harrogate?
he's he's touring his 26th solo album, or his 26th official album rather,
Mm.
studio album. He's 26 in his career since his first album, Howling Wind in 1976 came out. He's touring
Mm.
that, and the tour's coming to the Old Woollen in Farsley near Leeds
Ah, the one that
tomorrow
we
night,
went to the other day.
which is
Yeah,
Monday,
yeah.
September 25th. So having been there recently,
Mm.
when I was asked to do the interview, I said yes, that'd be great. And he was great. He's 72 now, but he's still as punchy and spiky as he was in the
Mm.
60s when, although his music was a bit sort of like street level Bob Seger meets Bruce Springsteen with a bit of Dylan chucked on top. He's still retained that spiky attitude that endeared him to punks even in the late 70s, even though he wasn't technically punk. He was a good bloke to talk to.
He wrote, I think, probably the best ever song about losing a child, termination of pregnancy. An
Mm.
extraordinary song, and I don't think it's probably that well known. It's a remarkable song. I do always wonder whether Joe Jackson became successful, Elvis Costello became hugely successful. I always feel that Graham Parker never quite got his just desserts.
You're right. He didn't have hit singles really. He had a few top 40s and top 30s, and his first six albums between 76 and 1980,
Mm.
they were all successful in Britain, although they were more successful in America. He was actually bigger in America. In America, for a time, he was as big as Elvis Costello. He was
Mm.
really rated. The Americans thought he was great. In fact, they still do. So much so that that director Judd Apatow, who made
Yes.
Knocked Up and
Mm.
40-Year-Old Virgin. Well, in
Mm.
2012, i.e., about 11 years ago,
Mm.
his film This Is 40, starring Paul Rudd, was actually inspired by Graham Parker and the Rumour. It was about
Oh,
someone trying
yes.
to book Graham Parker and the Rumour. And there's a cameo by Graham Parker in the film. And
Oh, yes.
Judd Apatow's a big director in Hollywood, so for
Mm.
him to be in a major movie inspired by him shows you how much the Americans
Mm.
rate Graham Parker, whereas the British have undervalued Graham Parker for an awful long time. And I put this point to him, and he said, "Well, yeah, I agree, but what can you do about it?" He says, "I was having a blast then playing live gigs, and I'm still having a blast now. So all I do is
Yeah.
play live gigs and record new songs, and I'm happy." So you can't phase Graham Parker. He's got
No.
a true, even though he's not a punk, he's got a true punk spirit.
And what about Denise? Because Five Star, as a star does,
Mm.
shone brightly, then fizzled out. and
Well,
always stories
yeah,
of it is within the family. It's not an unfamiliar story, and I mean, being off the scene, it would seem to me for a while, but you nevertheless have got
well, no.
to speak with her. So what's been happening, and why is she in Harrogate, and why did you get to interview her?
Well, in fact, Five Star was still big in Britain and America, not just in the 80s, but in a large part of the 90s, till it all went
Mm,
a bit skew with sort
yes,
of because it was basically all siblings. The band was run by the dad. It
yeah,
was all brothers and sisters, including Denise, who was about the youngest one at the time. I think she was 15 when they had
mm,
their first hit,
yeah,
and so she's still only in her 50s. And it all went a bit wrong and a bit
mm,
messy. But throughout all that, she's always had a successful solo career. She's been in West End musicals. She's released solo albums. She still tours as Five Star. And the reason she's in Harrogate is simple. And she's lived in Harrogate about 5 minutes from the town centre now for the last 18 months. And it's because the team that organises her tours and her career and her videos are based in Leeds. And her masseuse loves Harrogate, knows Harrogate. And having lived in California in the 90s and moved back to England in the noughties, Denise was looking for somewhere to move to. And her masseuse said, well, come to Harrogate, you'll love it. And so Denise did. And what she really likes about Harrogate, which is quite weird, is she's a real big Christmas person. And she says the way Harrogate celebrates Christmas, with all the lights, with
yes.
the Christmas market and all the attractions, she
Mm.
says, I absolutely love it.
So she's come to Harrogate. Is she going to perform in Harrogate?
I don't think so. She's doing a 40th anniversary Five Star gig in London at the end of this
Yeah.
month. She's got a new single, Forever Young, which she's written herself, which is a nice sort of sub Bob Marley, upbeat, uplifting
Mm.
reggae type track. She's got a solo album coming out next year, but there's no hint she's going to be playing in Harrogate.
No.
Although you can't say no. I mean, who knows? She might do. She might do a Charm gig for me. That'd be hilarious.
That'll be the one, Graham.
Charm presents Five Star, a band who stood for everything that Charm was opposed to. No,
So I mean,
I think I think I'd say no to that one.
really, well, I don't think you'd better tell it to her face. But I mean, so as you say, it was presented to you on a plate to some extent, but of course, it made us naturally made a story because you do think, well, why has Denise ended up living in Harrogate? Turns out, loves Christmas. Masseuse gives her the tip that it's a lovely place to live. Apart from the Harrogate Christmas market, has she said what else she enjoys about Harrogate?
Well, she likes it because it's a beautiful town. Almost anybody who moves to Harrogate moves because it's a beautiful town
Mm,
and it's very civilized.
mm.
And if you're famous, people don't pest you in the street. People in Harrogate are way, way, way too posh in general to bother you in the street if you're famous. That'd be so vulgar.
Lots of footballers, of course, have over the years lived in Harrogate and not been hassled. You're right.
Mm,
It's just not that kind of place, is it?
definitely not. But I did apologize to her in the interview because I said when I was younger in the 80s, I liked the Smiths and Jesus and Mary Chain and R.E.M. And I used to despise Five Star. I said, that's what I said to her on the phone. I said, but look at this, 40 years later, you're still successful. You still got a great career. You've been
Mm.
nothing but successful the whole time for 40 years. So I think I'm the one who's in the wrong, not you.
It's unlike you, Graham, to sort of be rude and yet polite at the same time. How did she react to that?
She took it well. She's a very positive person, and she
Mm.
did admit that she's still a bit of a queen. And if you see the photographs promoting her new single "Forever Young," she looks like a better version of Tina Turner in Mad Max.
You've been listening to the podcast Two Big Egos in a Small Car. Your hosts were Graham Chalmers and Charles Hutchinson. This was a Baltic sub-production.